Yeah, I'll do that today.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so it seems like we got a good number of people that have joined, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jennifer Taylor, and and welcome to our October call. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items to start. Most of you should have been muted upon entry into the call. However, we do want this to be an open forum for discussion. So feel free, if you have a comment or a question, to please unmute yourself and ask. We just ask you to be kind to whoever's speaking, and if you're not speaking, to please keep yourself on mute. And then you can also utilize, if you have any questions and you don't feel like talking over the call, you can always use the chat option in our Zoom, and I will do my best to keep track of that and answer those questions. And then lastly, this call is being recorded and will be posted on our NBSCRN YouTube channel. So if you have any colleagues that have missed it, just send them that way, and they can review these calls. And now I'll move on to the agenda. So first thing we're going to introduce, if anybody is new to this call and would like to introduce yourself, feel free to unmute yourself. And then we'll go into our routine agenda, which is updates of pilot teams with active or completed pilots. But we'd also like to get updates from other states that are screening for these disorders, MPS 1, XALD, SMA, and other candidate conditions. We will then have new steps and as well as NBSCRN. And then I finally just want to remind you, skip next month's call to the ACHDNC meeting, and our next call will be in December. So if there's anybody on your call, would you like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Valerie Willis calling, and I am a new NIH ACMG fellow and delighted to be joining you today.
Welcome, Valerie. Glad you could make the call.
Good afternoon. I'm Kinsey Anderson. I am the new Blood Spot Program Manager for the state of Kansas.
Welcome. Anyone else new to the call?
Hi, my name is Tate Capel. I'm the new lab supervisor for the Iowa Newborn Screening Program.
Welcome. Okay, I'm going to take that as those are new members joining. So I'm going to continue on. If there's no one else, I'm going to continue on to get updates from the pilot studies. I will do my best to take notes while you guys are giving your updates, but please look at the notes and let me know if I've messed something up and I have not written something down correctly. So please look out and make sure that everything I write is correct. So first off, we'll start with the New York team. We got an update from you in July and was wondering if you had anything for.
Hi, Jennifer, it's Joe. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
So I'm providing the updates, although our updates are, we really have nothing new to report. I believe the last time we had 22 SMA cases. Actually, I see it's 18 here, so we have up to 22 SMA cases.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of the details on the new cases as far as outcomes or diagnosis. And then for Pompe, our last classic case was picked up in June, so I believe we probably reported on that, but I can't tell from this.
You have 4 referrals listed for you. Oh no, I'm sorry. I did not take July notes.
Yep.
Like you had,
Yeah, we do have a 10th infantile case.
okay.
And for MPS 1, still no true cases. And we are at one more referral. We're at 21 referrals.
21, you said?
Yes. The XALD, I can give you, we're up to 120 referrals now. 46 males with ABCD1 variant and 47 females.
And you said how many females?
47,
Okay.
47. I
Joe?
think that's everything I've got.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the New York team about their?
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Sorry, this is Mary Schroth with QRSMA. Can you share with us how many patients have been screened for each of your reports?
Yeah, I have some of the numbers. I don't have all. I don't have the SMA numbers, but it's going to be actually pretty close to MPS 1. I think we started at the same time. For MPS 1, we're up to, this is actually samples. The number of screens about 10% lower. For our number of newborns would be about 10% lower, but 512,000 samples screened for IDUA. If you go to ALD, we're at 1.75 million.
1.75 million?
Yep. And GAA, hang on a second. I'm not believing the number I'm seeing here. Take a second for the spreadsheet to come up. I can get you the number. I'll type it in so I don't hold things up. I'll type it into the chat session.
Okay, that sounds good.
Joe, can you remind us of the methodology that you guys use for each one of those tests?
The LSDs we're using tandem mass spec, the PerkinElmer reagent method. And with ALD, it's a homebrew method that we actually run with combined extraction for succinyl acetone. And then that's first tier, the second tier is LCMS. And I do have the Pompe number, it was 1.56 million.
Joe, this is Harsuk from North Carolina. Joe?
I'm sorry, what was that?
This is Harsuk from North Carolina. I have a question on LSDs. Do you do 18 hours incubation or you just 6 hours incubation for LSDs? Because if you are following the FDA approved, then you have to go for 18 hours incubation. Rather, if you do not follow the, if you are homebrew, then you just can follow the 6 hours incubation. What is the incubation time for LSDs? Do you remember?
We use an overnight, and it's roughly 18 hours for us.
18 hours, okay.
Hey, Jill. This is May Baker from Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I look at your SMA. I did a quick calculation. And so based on what presented, so your incidence rate is close to 1 in 23,000. I know you guys, I reported early on experience, it's much lower than general. Seems you still keep this trend. Am I right?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to be
We've been
sure I got it
wondering.
right.
We've been wondering about that and kind of have a hypothesis that there may be some, a lot of people getting prenatal screening, done, but we're not, or family screening, parent screening ahead of time, but we're not certain of that. We're trying to figure it out because we've actually had lower incidence in a lot of our diseases, even PKU, and I don't know, it's just been a trend that we've seen.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting the observation, because we often think newborn screening sometimes in the rate is higher than the clinical excitation, but definitely not in this case for you. And I will wait for my turn to talk about Wisconsin later.
Joe, in addition to the methodology that you talked about, can you remind us what you guys do on the molecular side? So the follow-up for any of these that might involve molecular techniques?
Well, I can tell you for sure with everything but SMA, I'm not somehow my ear isn't to the ground so well with SMA, or maybe it's because I'm not involved at all with it. But with all of the other diseases, we do Sanger sequencing for second tier. For the LSDs, we use the Mayo Clear application, which has really lowered our referral rates for Crab-A, which I didn't report here, but that was lowered significantly. And I believe it's helped us with Pompe and MPS 1 to some level as well. And then, yeah, I guess that's all I have for you there.
So this is Bob Vogt. Hello.
Hey, Bob.
Quick question on the SMA on the clinical side. Half of your referrals have only 2 SMN2 copies, if I'm reading that correctly. And I'm wondering if, is there any follow-up into the, like what's happening in 1 year or 2 years after the therapies? And I'm curious to know if Mary has any thoughts about that. Are those newborns at greater risk? One would think those would be infantile onset. Is there any influence on how quickly the therapy is started and that sort of thing? Because half of them is, I think, a higher number than one would expect from what I've read in the past.
Hey, Bob, this is Mary Schroth with Cure SMA. So we're collecting data about these newborn screened babies. We have our own newborn screening registry where we invite families in, and we've shared with the state labs that information and ask them to pass it along if they have contact with families. So we're monitoring SMN2 copy number treatments symptoms at the time of screen positive. And I'm not sure I caught the second part of your question.
Well, just if that would influence the outcome, and I mean, the important thing is you're getting this information and you'll be looking at it in the long term. So I think that'll be very helpful in a few years to look back on that experience as a
Absolutely. And we know from the clinical trials on the various treatments that have been FDA approved that the earlier the treatment, the better the outcomes. And if you can get the treatments to these infants pre-symptomatically, you have the best outcomes, like unbelievably good outcomes for those babies that are treated pre-symptomatically.
Yeah. Would you expect babies with only 2 SMN2 copies to be pre-symptomatic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Infants with type 0 are symptomatic at birth. And I know there's some controversy about what's technically a type 0. But infants with type 1, some have mild symptoms at birth. Some develop symptoms at 2 weeks. Some it's, by the month, 2 months. That's just it's unpredictable when you will clinically see the symptoms. But the clinical trials have demonstrated that the 2-copy babies with early treatment do very well. Like it's totally changing the clinical phenotype of SMA. the treatments and now newborn screening to be able to deliver them early.
Terrific, thank you.
Bob, as far as follow-up in New York on the SMN, you're wondering about SMN2 cases, right?
Yeah,
And
about the
that was
babies with the lower SMN2 numbers, and which would
Yeah.
probably be infantile onset. So
Yeah, I only know of one child who was actually in like a newspaper thing and is doing really well, that was treated, and it was one of those. I think it was either the newspaper or on the web. I forgot which, but I saw a link for how the family was very happy with how the child's doing, and they're apparently, this is the only one I know of, and it's semi-anecdotically, I guess, but is doing well and meeting all their normal milestones for childhood development.
that's great. And I think there are many happier families than they would be without this going on. It's a terrific thing.
No question. This is Mary again. No question, Bob. We needed this. And for all these diseases, newborn screening is just incredible, the impact that it has.
Did you get that, Jennifer?
Yes.
I'm happy to do a commercial for newborn screening anytime.
That's good to know, Mary. If there's no other questions, we're going to move on to the next state, which is Georgia. I heard Dr. Wilcox is on the phone.
Yeah, so we're doing a pilot study for proximal urea cycle disorders, and right now that's on hold because the way that we're using Clear tools, and without using glutamine, which we were doing in the beginning with Neobase 1 screening, you get too many false positives. That's all we were getting, and getting more than one a week with our birth rate of 140,000 a year. So that was excessive. And then Neobase 2, we started screening with that. So we wanted to include glutamine, but discovered that glutamine and lysine run exactly the same in Neobase 2. So all of the norms that are in Clear don't work. And so that is being worked on now to try and get samples to analyze our data using Neobase 2 for these urea cycle babies so that the Clear tool can be improved. So that's happening between Tricia Hall in our group and Mayo and other folks. They're trying to improve this. So that's where things stand with that.
Dr. Wilcox, do you guys
yes, ma'am,
have that Neobase 2 kit and then are validating it?
No, the Neobase 2 has been running for a while now.
Okay.
So we've got data on glutamine lysine peak, but there's no norms to use to try and sort out the proximal urea cycle cases. We were thinking, and incorrectly so, that the glutamine that's on that using Neobase 2 is just glutamine. And that would have been very useful for a urea cycle disorder, but it's not. So it's mixed in with lysine, which is pretty abundant in a baby. So that's a problem. I don't know if it's going to end up working. We're going to have to see. You know, this was based on the assumption that we'd be able to get glutamines to be able to do this accurately, and I don't think we're going to be able to do it. So we'll see how well it works. Before we start up, we want to make sure that we're not going to get so many false positives. It's just not acceptable in any time, but certainly not in COVID time, to be bringing these folks into emergency rooms and things to get ammonias drawn. So that's where that one stands. We're delighted. We were just awarded a contract for the disorders of elevated homocysteine. So we'll be looking at the remethylation disorders as well as homocystinuria, and trying to pick up the milder cases, and that will be to improve the CLEAR tools to try and get that done and use second-tier testing. We're going to do it through Mayo with their combined total homocysteine, methylcitrate, and MMA assay that it can do on a blood spot. Michigan's been doing that for a while, so we're going to see if we're able to pick up some of the milder homocysteinuric patients. That's a goal, as well as more of the remethylation disorders, because some of them do much better if we can get them on high-dose hydroxycobalamin early. So that's, we just got awarded, so we're in the startup phase right now. And X-linked ALD is live. We've been doing that for a little while now, after a hiatus after the pilot screen. SMA didn't have a hiatus at all after the pilot screen. We're continuing on and screening. I don't know if Angela's, I saw she's on the line. I don't know if she's got current numbers for any of these things. And Pompe and MPS 1 will start up sometime, we're hoping by the end of the year. It keeps getting delayed because of financial things and logistical things with COVID causing chaos to the state. So that's the status of things now.
And this is Angela. We, including the pilot, up to date, we have for SMA 14 diagnosed cases. And then ALD, since we restarted, I know we detected 1 case of Zellweger maybe, and then we have 2 in progress that we're still working up. So that's actually been going pretty well. It's kind of it's going well like the pilot did, not excessive false positives, which is nice. And I think MPS 1 and Pompe, at the last I talked with Art, who may be on this call, I think we're looking more like the first of the year, after the first of the year.
Angela, can you remind us what you guys, if you multiplex SMA with SCID, and then what
We
you
do.
do for the SMN2 copy number?
We do multiplex SMA with SCID, and SMN2 copy number is just part of the confirmatory testing. We have families confirm with SMN1 and reflex to SMN2 copy number.
And how many total have you screened for SMA?
It's a great question. And I do not have that answer for you. Everybody since we started our pilot last year.
It's going on now almost 2 years, isn't it?
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. Sorry, but yeah, it's been a little while.
I'm asking, this is Melissa, I'm just asking because, you know, the incidence of SMA is actually, you know, turning out to be sort of variable. And, you know, we just heard the experience from New York State where it's like 1 in 20,000, 23,000 or whatever. And some of the other data from some of the other states suggest it's maybe 1 in 10,000. So it sounds like,
yeah, we definitely had a higher incidence than New York in their pilot. So it's interesting.
Yeah, we were closer to the 1 in 10,000.
Interesting.
And I know 2 of those cases, so our pilot ended, I think technically May-ish is when we stopped the pilot part. And so that was what was on my report. And that there were 12 kids in that. So 2 of them were since May. So that helps a little bit. But yeah, we're definitely looking different than New York, which is just interesting and fun.
I have one question for you guys, just to catch up on the notes. Did you talk about have you guys decided for your new award what screening methodology you're going to be using for the homocysteine pilot?
Oh, it's what we're doing now. So
okay,
the screening is using the amino acids and acylcarnitines. So we're looking at methionine to phenylalanine ratio, C3 and C3 to C2 ratio to start with, and then improving the clear tools along the way, which is more complicated than just simple ratios, and then see if we can, with the second tier testing, we can get something that a state newborn screening program can afford without too many second tier tests, which are not cheap. And this should cut down on some of the referrals that we're getting right now, which would be a big plus. So we should get more positives for all the referrals that we're doing.
And is the second tier method, are you guys going to be doing it from the blood spot?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're sending from the original newborn screen. As soon as we get something that looks like it could be one of these disorders, we're sending the blood spot punch up to Mayo for second tier testing, which they run twice a week. So Michigan's been doing this for a while, but they haven't used the kind of clear tools that we're planning on using. They just set their cutoffs, and so we're hoping this will end up being a little better, and we'll pick up some of the pyridoxine dependent homocystinuria, which nobody can do right now.
Is anyone on the call from Michigan?
And really quick, Jennifer, on the SMA, Art kindly just let me know that we screened about 180,000 kiddos to find those 14 cases.
180K?
Yes.
That's including the pilot numbers as well?
Correct.
Any other questions for Georgia? Okay, so we're going to move on to our next state, North Carolina.
Hi, it's Cindy Powell from UNC. I can report on the early check of statewide voluntary newborn screening project. As of September, we've screened over 10,600 babies.
Say that one more time, Cindy.
Screened over 10,600 babies. And we've had 2 screen positive cases for SMA. One confirmed with zero SMN1 and 2 SMN2 copies. And that baby just received their first dose of Spinraza today. Parents were interested in the gene therapies, Zolgensma, but the baby had an elevated titer, AAV titer, so it made them ineligible for gene therapy at this time. The other case, the other screen positive case, that child has a low white blood cell count, and we've not been able to get confirmatory testing yet. We've got parental carrier testing pending. There's failure to get enough DNA so far, and but that baby was just above our cutoff, and probably it was due to the low white blood cell count that has caused this. So, but we're still, so we can hopefully report back next month about that case. That child also had an initial borderline abnormal SCID newborn screen through the regular state newborn screening program, and then was subsequently found to be negative, but has had like white blood cell counts that were low, then went up, and now they're back down again. So maybe some transient leukopenia problem.
It's interesting, you guys had 2 cases since our last call.
Yep. After not having any since we started. So. Yeah, it was interesting too, because our positive case, and the parents have given us permission to share this information, but they were known to be a carrier couple for SMA, and they mom had had non-invasive prenatal screening done through a company that offered single gene disorder screening in addition to aneuploidy screening, and that was negative. So they went from like a 1 in 4 risk to 1 in 40 risk. They elected to not have confirmatory invasive testing through amnio or CVS, but then did sign up for early check, fortunately, and unfortunately that baby was actually homozygous. So.
Any questions for Cindy, did you have any other comments or any other updates for us?
No, we haven't started state screening for other conditions yet, hopefully by next year. Having similar problems with Georgia to Georgia's with COVID-19 causing a lot of complications and getting those started, so.
Do we have any questions from for Cindy about her updates on SMA? All righty, we'll move on to our other states. And May, I heard that you were on the line. You could give a update on Wisconsin. So you want to start off with you, May?
Okay. So, hi everybody. I haven't been on for a while because when I don't have things to present, and I don't want to be on. So we are formal pilot study state, and when we finished Pompeii, so we have the gap because our state have the independent process of nomination. So I can give people a little bit update about the Pompeii. Pompeii went through our state advisory board, everything, and the Secretary of Health has endorsed. Right now in the process called rulemaking. So to me, it's just a matter of time. Unfortunately, sometimes have to be patient. And we did the 18 months the pilot funded by NICHD. And during that period of time, our method was, and I believe we'll continue to use when we get our routine screening, is tandem mass spec. Our enzyme cutoff is, in my opinion, is a little bit lower, but I think it was working for us. It's 10% of the daily median. And we do have a second tier, use Sanger sequencing. Because I believe when you do this kind of screening, Sanger makes sense because when you encounter one screening enzyme low, next gen doesn't make sense because you cannot do one sample next gen, you cannot afford it. So this is why we chose to do Sanger sequencing and look at the whole genes. So in that period of time, we identified 13 actually late onset case, and no false positives, no SOTU deficiency identified. And this late onset, all the cases, we have two defined pathogenic variants identified. So this is our pilot SMA. So now we started with SMA screening last October 14. So up to now, I have the data is up to October 15. So up to September 14, we have 11 months data. So we screen the babies is 56,660. We reported 6 positive cases and all being confirmed. We have 2 SMA, two
cases. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, 6 cases.
Okay, 6 cases.
Yeah, 6 cases, 50,333 screening. So we have 2 SMA SMA2 copies have a 2x2, 3x2, 4x2. And all these 6 cases, except one, I still pending. The 6 other 5 received Zolgensma infusion. And the earliest one is day 11 after birth. We have 11, 15, 18. Let me get my Excel file so I can get it right. So the time received gene therapy is 11, 15, 18, 19, 30. This is the days. And the one case we still pending is because, as Cindy reported, this case is a high AAV9 antibody titers, and they're repeated, still high because family really want the gene therapy, so decide to go to Spinraza, and 6 months later repeated, and to see where is the antibody titers. So that's our preliminary report here now. And in terms of screening method for SMA, we utilize the multiplexing. I call it tripleplexing because in the test system, you have a track, SM1, and the reference gene. So our is a little bit different because when we do PCR, actually our PCR amplify both SMA1, SMA2, because at that time we was hoping to assess SMA2 copy numbers. And we quickly find out real-time PCR is not a good method to assess SMA2 copy number. In our hands, I have to be specified. It wasn't, we don't feel comfortable. So what we end up to do is we still have a SMA2 probe, but we don't label them. So we utilize this to block SMA2. So we help us SMA1 assay. So that's what we do. And also we do the in-house SMA2 copy numbers assessment. If you have SMA1, 0, we will, on the same spots, use a droplet digital PCR to assess SMA2 copy numbers. And we report both. Also, when a clinician see the patient the first time, we'll collect independent dry blood spots, send back to the laboratory. We will redo, well not redo, we'll confirm SMA1, SMA2 by droplet digital PCR. So I think I give the detailed reason is that we did a lot discussion in our state. So we want to have SMA2 be part of our screening. The reason is when you have a SM1 0, you call patients, and if you have a SM2 copy numbers in hand, it's a little bit easier to communicate with family. And also we built this SMA2 cost in our newborn screening fee. So we don't charge. And so make everything simplified. And when a clinician see patients, have another dry blood spot sent back to us, it's no charge either. So we did it on purpose, trying to make things simplified. I do believe some way helped get all the treatment plan started. So I do want to mention that is the baby received treatment at the day 11 day old. That's actually was prenatal diagnosis. But interesting, I found out is the drug company doesn't take your prenatal diagnosis information to make give you drug anything. So they have to wait newborn screening results to initiate the treatment. But I still think it's help the family to prepare, and there's no doubt about that. Another beauty is when you have prenatal diagnosis, and I was informed, and I didn't tell our staff in terms of the results, but give us an opportunity actually for this specimen. What we did is when do the real time, we did the triplicates right away. Instead of do sequentially, do one, then do to repeat it. We just do the triplicates right away for real time. And also at the same time, we did the digital PCR. So it's a really, I think, make the process, at least you don't do sequentially, I think potentially can save 1 day. So, but anyway, so that's, I feel like, I think it's good to share with everybody. So that's what I have, and any questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks for the update, May. Anybody have any questions?
Hey, May, it's Mary Schroth with Cure SMA. How many patients have you screened so far?
56,633.
633, okay, I was
So I have to say that Wisconsin, the effort SMA actually started when Mary is still with us. And Mary, I hope you still remember the first conversation we had.
Oh, May, you betcha I remember. Oh, yes. Yes. It took, you know, it takes a long time to get newborn screening implemented.
Yeah, we had a lot of time to prepare, right?
Yes, yes. So I have another question for you though, May. So you're doing the SMN2 copy number, and it sounds like you do the confirmatory testing as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, most states don't do that. They use an external lab, and there's confirmatory testing available for free through Invitae and
yeah, that's why. Yeah, interestingly is yeah. The one thing is when we start talk about the newborn screening SMA, actually, if people like this, I want to give the genetic counselors a lot of credit, because when we do the discussion in our committee, genetic counselors really worry about the whole genetic testing pre-authorization process.
Yes.
And we know that is right now, the drug company provide a free SMN2 copy numbers testing. But people, our genetic counselors in our state worry about the long term. So we made a decision ahead of time. And we said, you know, because when you do 65,000 for a year, you're adding SMN2, and we know this test, the false positive rate is, it's a disorder, so you really can try to achieve the false positive rate 0, and which is what we have now. And you can see with a state like us, a dozen SMN2 patients needed to do that. You divide it into this 65,000, it's become so affordable. And this is why, because we worry about the turnaround time. If not, without the free test, you had a pre-authorization, easily take a week, take a month. So we decided that's the process we're gonna do. And I quite pleased that so far, our laboratory results compared with the other outside report is concurrent. And also one story I want to share with you is, we have the report, we said this SMN2 is 4 copies. And the commercial report coming back said 4 or more.
Right. Which is what I wanted to ask you about is, can you detect the difference between 4 and 5 copies of SMN2?
So as far as we know, during our assay validation process, and also from other independent lab to assess the 5 copies, so far, we have no indication say we can't. And every single time our report coming back, we have 3 or 4 SMA2, SMA2 5, at least 3 cases I know, and we have an unequivocal results.
Okay. Because from the clinician perspective, you know, there's a difference between 4 copies and 5 copies of SMN2 regarding treatment. The current recommendations are 4 copies you treat, 5 copies you wait. So it's just been challenging because, as you identified, the commercial labs are reporting 4 or more and not really distinguishing.
I think people have a concern about that. It's very makes sense because it's a more challenging distinguish between 4 and 5, the nature of that. But I think if you look at the published data, but that time, droplet digital PCR wasn't available. And that's why we chose the method. And when we decided this will be our part of us. because I think so far what I know right now, if you look at the publication, one thing for Mayo Clinic talk about use a droplet PCR for SMA2 copy numbers. And if you look at the other paper talk about the pitifulness, that data didn't include droplet digital PCR. And in my personal experience, I really think I like a droplet digital PCR better than MLPA.
And I would add to May's comments on that there's no question that the ddPCR is the best method for doing it, and I think those results will distinguish 4 from 5. And I think traditional real-time qPCR will not make that distinction reliably. That's going to be up on the wrong end of the curve anyway. So looking at the literature, even over the fairly recent years, is a little out of date. And really, these numbers should be done. And Mary, I would encourage you to promulgate this message. It should be done just like May was describing. It works real well. And you can actually see on the ddPCR display, you can actually see 2 clusters. You can distinguish the SMN1 from the SMN2, even with a single probe. It's really a remarkable, it almost looks like a flow cytometry output. So, which it sort of is. So I think May's comments are very, very well made.
And May I have one question? I'm sorry to jump in here. So for the states that are considering bringing on these types of methods, can you discuss, have you only screened with digital PCR your referred cases, or did you have more cases that you had to refer, that you had to screen with using your second tier method? May, you still there?
Yes, I thought that it's not for me. Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Oh, yes, I was wondering, so are your cases referred the only one that used digital PCR, or did you have other cases that you that were screen positive that went through your second tier method and then screened out that way?
Oh, yeah, I apologize if I didn't make clear. Our second tier, if you say second tier, we don't even use the second tier term for this application, because your screening positive will already be decided by SMN1. Any SMN1 0, we would report it. We decided even 5 copies because we really need to learn about the 5 copies. But so far, we haven't identified any 5 copies of SMN2. So SMA2 assessment is additional, I call just in-time information. So every single screening positive, I said it wrong. Any specimen with SMN1 0 cases will undergo droplet digital PCR for SMN2 copy number assessment. So far, we have 6 cases with SMN1 0, and all 6 cases has been assessed at SMA2 by digital PCR. And I hope that makes sense, make a little bit clear now. And yes. We only use it, okay. I apologize. Also, in your notes, in terms of 5 cases infusion is 11, 15, 18, 19, and 1 case is 30 days.
1 case is, okay, thank you.
And the 1 is pending, yeah. And very likely we'll use Spinraza because the AAV9 antibody titer high.
And then I have a question in the chat for you, May.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And it's asking, are you using the Bio-Rad SMN2 kit, or are you using a homebrew primers and probes in PCR conditions?
Yes, thank you for the question. And for SMA2, we use Bio-Rad. And for full disclosure, I try to use our own method, and I like their performance a little bit better. Also for we also have a drop at the digital PCR for SMA1 because we have a research project to assess the SMA carrier frequency in in plant community, but we have our home brewed method because I want to be cheap. But so yeah, we have both home brewed and BioRed.
Thank you, May. We only have 5 minutes left on this call, so I just want to give a little time for some updates that we have from APHL and NBSTRN. So I'm going to move on to that. And if you have any, if you're a state and you have any updates, feel free to send us an email. We can make sure we include you on the list next time. I know one of the states just sent out an announcement on the HPHL listserv. Utah, they just started screening for SMA. So any dates like that, please feel free to let us know. So
can I add in a very quick thing? So I just realized that. Thank you for reminding me talk about the APHL, and actually our asset development of APHL, for the SMA2 copy numbers, the asset development, we received the funding from New Steps for the digital SMA2 copy numbers, asset development.
Is anybody from APHL New Steps on the phone to give their?
Yes. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, so for the first item, as a reminder, we will be hosting the APHL Newborn Screening Virtual Symposium from October 20th to November 12th. If you have not done so already, please register using the link provided. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So we also have 2 new funding opportunities available. The first will support newborn screening needs resulting from current public health emergencies. Newborn screening programs can use funding for enhancements to electronic reporting, meetings and trainings, health information technology, outreach, and other areas. Applications are due Friday, October 23rd. For more information, please contact Sika Singh with your questions. Next slide. Okay, and the second opportunity is the enhancement of SCID newborn screening. APHL is going to provide funding and TA to newborn screening programs for the implementation of SCID. States can use funding to purchase equipment, instruments, modification to limbs, strengthening long-term follow-up and clinical referral networks. And these are just to name a few. There are other areas that we can fund as well. So applications are due Friday, October 30th. For more information, please contact Ruth Ann Scheller. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. And just a few updates from NBSTRN. We had our virtual summit this past month, and we just want to let you know that their presentations are available. If you did not have a chance to attend it live, you can still catch it. So go to our YouTube channel and please check out those presentations. They were very informative. And you can also go to our website and use our resources and check for our updates in newborn screening research at www.nbstrn.org. And you can also follow us on any of the social media outlets. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the Every Life Foundation Bootcamp. They started off, I believe, their session yesterday with their first round of talks. And the next round will be on October 7th. It's called Let's Talk Data, an overview on the data needed for a RUS nomination package. You can go to the website everylifefoundation.org for more information and to register for this meeting. Is there Amy, did you have any other updates on this or anything else you would like to say about this meeting? Or is anybody from Every Life Foundation on this call?
No, I would just encourage everybody to join in. That last hour is really a question and answer session. And I know the session yesterday had a lot of really good discussion. So just encourage everybody to tune in.
And lastly, I see on the chat box that Cindy gave us the New York number, the California numbers. California started screening in June 24th of this year, and they've already screened approximately 114,000 specimens, and they've have 6 SMA positives. So I will add those to the notes for our updates for next call. So thank you everybody again for participating in the call. Oh, and then also Mary, I got your note too that I need to update Wisconsin. They the 5 that screen positives screen for Zolgensma. So I will update the notes on that as well. Thank you for looking over my notes so I can update them. With that said, thanks everyone for joining the call. I will just close out by saying if you have any other questions or any feedback, please email myself or Amy Brower. And again, our next call will be December 3rd. We are going to be skipping over the November call due to the ACH DNC meeting. And hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
Bye.